Well, hello, friend, and welcome to another episode of Van Life Living in the Ark. I'll tell you, today's going to be the last nice day of weather until the tomorrow it's going to be rain, and then after that it's going to drop in temperature. So I thought I'd spend the last nice day in a week or so down by the river. It's beautiful down here watching the birds fly around, and you've got some mallard ducks and things. Well, friend, today I'm going to talk to you about power, right? Because I had an experience this morning that brought that back up in my mind. And usually God lets me go through experiences so that I can talk to you about them. And, Jesus, when he went into the wilderness, had to face the devil, right? Meaning what we would call face our demons. He had to face power and starvation and using God's power. And well, this morning I was turned on because I do videos about Jesus. And I'm also researching things a lot. I'm on the internet a lot, and I watch a lot of shorts because that's where I come up with some of the things that's going on that I go to research when I'm trying to figure things out, and in different places. And there was a video on there about a Krampus parade coming to San Antonio, Texas in November, which it already happened evidently, but it was advertising that it was coming. Do you all know what Krampus is? Krampus was a Norse demon, right? But it's also what your elves are, kind of the origins of the elves, right? From Santa and the elves. They're actually, the way I understand it, is Krampus. That see all these traditions that weasel into our holidays actually don't have the background you think. It's like the Yule log that people like to put on, right? That was actually also from the Norse religion, and they used to sacrifice human beings on logs, and that was a Yule log. So the interpretation of the things we get is completely pagan and has nothing to do with Jesus. But to tell you the truth, if you've noticed, Jesus' birthday was not in the Bible, and it surely was not on Mithra's birthday, which was the son of the sun god in another pagan religion, right? So we gave Jesus as a pagan god's son's birthday. I wonder why the Pope did that. Do you ever wonder? I can tell you why, but you'd have to research it. And that is because they were combining religions. So this was never about Jesus' birthday, this whole Christmas thing. But I think that most people that do some investigation have discovered that most of our holidays are farce, and they were lies about truths. I mean, even Thanksgiving was, we talk about celebrating the harvest with the Indians, but or the Native Americans. But what's the real truth? They're all on reservations in a bunch of deserts, living on government funded money, and the only way that they can have a decent life is if they choose to give up their Native American heritage and move into our society, right? So they have a choice to make. I'm not here to make anything of it right or wrong. This is my observation of the truths that we tell versus what the reality is. And, because I grew up thinking the Pilgrims and Native Americans, well, I'm part Native American, friend, so obviously that part of me wouldn't be overly happy about that, but I don't really, I'm a mutt. I'm a little bit of everything, right? But what I know is that the purpose of the world is to come to know love by experience, but power can be, a terrible thing. And that's where I was going with the Krampus thing, because even though you would think that it wouldn't have anything to do with that, I was looking at a couple different Krampus videos. And I've told you that Jesus saved me from myself, right? I'm not this self-righteous guy that comes on here and talks about going to hell in your life. Christ brought me a greater kingdom right here in my life because he taught me how to forgive myself by accepting his forgiveness, because I was a man that couldn't forgive me, and there was people that really hurt me and I couldn't forgive them either, and I was living a life full of hate and unforgiveness. And that's not a life you want to have, friend, because that's the life I lived. Well, if you get to know Christ's message, he was actually talking about forgiving others their debts so you could be forgiven yours. And, even in the Lord's Prayer, he talked about that. So to forgive, it is also to be forgiven. And I know Christianity doesn't talk about that. They've turned this all into a farce about heaven and hell somewhere else and are not getting what Jesus was doing at all, right? So I'm always on here to tell you that if you're a person like me, that you come from hate and you were looking for power and you had none, and then you started becoming powerful in ways you didn't like, and then Satan gets a hold of you, friend, and then he traps you. He trapped me, because when I would drink, I'd do things. I'd get mad and hurt people, and I was just a miserable person, and I wouldn't be that way because that's not my nature. But when I drank, it somehow gave me permission when I would black out to hurt people, and that's not right. And then once he got his claws in me, well, then he had control of me sometimes, right? And then for people that have been into alcohol or drugs, you know this truth to be true if you've looked in the mirror yet, friend. And that is that once you start down this road and you start doing things to hurt people, whether it be stealing to get more drugs or treating women like whores or whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is you do, it's going to make you feel bad about yourself. And then when you would want to quit doing the drugs and the alcohol that's actually causing you to do it, it's a trap, because it's the only thing that gives you relief from what you're becoming, the thoughts in your mind of what you are. And that was the trap I was in. So Satan had power over me in that way, right? And I'm not talking about Satan, about some two-horned beast somewhere else. I'm talking about the adversarial thought in my head, friend. We all have it. Jesus said that you would either fall on the rock and be broken to pieces, that's two pieces, or the rock would fall on you and crush you. So in the end, you get crushed if you don't decide to get broken to pieces. Now, those pieces are two pieces, love and selfishness. So now that I am Christ conscious, meaning that I believe in him for forgiveness and he's forgiven me, and therefore I can forgive myself, I also have to forgive others. But because of the message I'm talking, I also recognize, in fact, I went and met with somebody that's an old friend of mine that I used to work with, and I was talking about some of the things that I talk about on these videos, and he said, Jason, you have to be careful because the things you're saying will get you killed. And I said, I know they will, because I'm on here speaking truth, friend, and people don't want the truth. They want to hide it, right? So that gives my thought of Satan power. He wants to try to get me to think that not speaking the message of Christ and where this world is going, that I would be better off going back and taking power over my own life. The problem is, one thing is, I love being in relationship with God. There's just no greater life. And God takes care of me in miraculous ways that I can't even prove to you. I don't have to. But what happens is I have this wonderful life where I'm not being a person that I used to be, and I absolutely love the life that I have. But it means I have no power. I'm powerless because God has all power. I accept that. I see that. I know that's true, right? And so, therefore, my thought of Satan will come to me trying to get me to seek power, and that's just a lie. And it'll, the truth is that anytime I take power over anything or anybody, it's just an illusion. Like people with money, they right now think that they have all this power because they have all this money, but Jesus told you at the end of the age, the playing field's going to get leveled out. And these folks that think that they can buy everything with their money, which is true at the moment, right? But it's not going to be at the end of the age, right? You're talking people will be trading their Mercedes-Benz for a can of beans. You're just not getting it. So, and because I say these things, people don't want to think about that. They want to pretend, Christians want to act like they're going to just be the herd that runs off the cliff with everybody else because you think you get a pre-tribulation rapture. Friend, you all just aren't thinking about what you're thinking about. Jesus told you that he was going to deny those that prayed, prophesied, and cast out demons in his name. So those of you that were not worrying about anything because you're getting out on a pre-trib rap means you're probably not, because you were thinking that you could just let the world do what it does and you don't have to think about feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, and visiting the sick and in prison. And Christ told you if you didn't, you weren't going to enter his kingdom, because you're not in the spirit of love, you're in the spirit of selfishness. And the spirit of selfishness is the spirit of Satan. So you want power in your life, yet you let other people be powerless. And so I'm not here to give anybody power, but I'm telling you, if you want the power, to seek the Holy Spirit. Jesus literally told you that the Holy Spirit would testify to you about him. So if you get to know him, you'll get to know my Father. Because this morning when I had these thoughts that showed up that I didn't like, that's how I got rid of them. Was I put my thoughts before God, because I started having old thoughts that, friend, I've told you, I've been a lustful man. There's things that I used to do that, even though some things I did were wrong and I hated it, but there's other ways that Satan tries to tempt me back in. He doesn't remind me of how it went wrong. He tries to remind me of the things that went right or the things that felt good. He's always trying to deceive me into returning to the hell from which I came, right? But Jesus gave me a way out. But part of that having the way out is that I have to now live and abide in what Christ said. And it doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect or that it's about perfection, but it's about hanging all the laws and the prophets on only 2 commandments, just like Jesus said, because he said to love thy Father with all thy heart, mind, and soul is like loving your neighbor as yourself. Because my Father's in your neighbor, he wants you to love your neighbor so that you can love him also, right? I mean, if God created it all, then he created every person here. Quite often religion gets confused about that. They talk about, they call people of Satan, but that's of selfishness. But that doesn't mean that Satan created them. They were created by God, right? Satan has no real creative power. So when people call other people evil, they're calling my Father's children evil, and that's just not a good plan if you want to enter this kingdom. Because you're supposed to, that doesn't mean, there's some people I can't help, right? I'm not going to go out and cast my pearls before swine. But I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of these rich folk that are all dressed up are the swine. It's not necessarily the people out there that are hungry and naked and starving. Some of them are like me too, and they're hurting, but they're like me. A lot of them are hurting and they want out, but they don't know how to get out. And those that know Christ are supposed to teach them, right? So if you get to know Christ and his parables, you'll end up with this greater kingdom, and where you end up knowing love by experience. I loved it when I was out feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, visiting the sick and in prison. And people there's no one that'll love you more than those that feel hated and lost, because they don't want to be that way, friend. I didn't. I wanted to know how to love people, but I didn't know how. And Christ taught me. And so that's the purpose of the world. The purpose of the world is to come to know love by experience, but we have to make that choice. Love is an action. James said that faith without works is dead, because there's no action in it. Love is an action. So we love our neighbor by taking care of our neighbor. And if we're not going to take care of our neighbor, then we think we're more and they're less, and that doesn't bring the kingdom. And because you don't seek to bring the Father's kingdom here, he's not going to seek to have you in it there. Christ told you all this, right? He told you that if you were fruitful, he would prune you and make you even more fruitful, which means doing all these things to help other people, learning to forgive, learning to love, and that he would prune you and make you even more fruitful. But at the end of the age, if people choose not to do that, then he was going to gather up the dead limbs, right, and then cast them into the furnace, meaning the end of the age. So it's all about love. But if you're not going to choose love, then you're not going to have it, and then you just don't want to make that choice, friend. So if you want to know Jesus, I really suggest you get a red letter edition of the Bible and read what Jesus said in red, because that is the true words that you want to understand, and they will bring you the kingdom right here, right now. Because this morning, when those thoughts of Satan came to me, those thoughts of wanting power, because, friend, like I said, some power seems like it's good, but it's not. Because anytime you take power over someone else, you're taking power from them, right? And then that isn't leading them to God, that's leading them away from God. Making me feel more powerful doesn't give God more power. And I want everybody to find God's power, because that's the power of love and of forgiveness. Yet even in my head now, on a weak moment, can I have these thoughts that just seem appealing, and it's a liar. That thought up there in my head, that adversarial thought, it was a liar in the beginning, it'll be a liar in the end. And if I take my time and really think about the consequences of it, I will see every time that it is wiggling half a tongue. So I have a serpent in my head because it wiggles half a tongue. It'll remind me of the good things, about how something felt good, all the while forgetting to tell me that if I go back to that I hated myself, I would trap myself. I would have to hide in the darkness again. So I'm not this perfect guy. I never say I am. But I am in the image and likeness of my Father a little more over time than I was before, because I keep seeking the kingdom first and trying to hang all the laws and the prophets on only 2 commandments, because one is like the other. Now, I do selfish things. I've told you, you all know I smoke. How many self-righteous Christians would love to judge me for that? Well, he said our kingdom's going to go from a tiny mustard seed to a tree to give shade and rest to others. But on the other hand, he also said that it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth. So if I were to drink or do drugs, well, then the wrong things are going to come out of my mouth. Wrong thoughts are going to enter my head. Smoking doesn't cause that. I'm not saying it's right. It's not good for your body. I'm not denying that either. But I'm also not denying the fact that everything these corporations are feeding us is poison. And for me to think that my body's going to last while I'm eating the poison they're feeding us just because I quit smoking, that's a lie too. So my Father's told me that I'm supposed to put him first and he'll worry about all this. So you all can judge me for whatever you want. It really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, on Judgment Day, it's between me and God what's right or wrong. And if he needs to judge me, then I'll take it then, right? But that just is what it is. So I just want you to realize that if you're a person that has never sought power or never hated yourself because you never gone through experiences that cause that, that's wonderful. But don't judge other folks for going through it, because when you lose your power, you can either start seeking to take other people's power, and other people find power in being a victim. Because even if you go to like 12-step programs, they have 12-step programs for the spouses of the recovering people, because when you're in relationship with a sick individual, you'll become sick yourself, right? That's what happens, our mindset. If someone abuses you and you tolerate that, it'll change your mind. That's why you need support. That's the reason Christ talked about love and forgiveness, but not to let anybody just run over you either, right? So if you've ever been in a relationship where that started, you have to get out right away, or else it's going to take over your life and it's going to mess up your mind. I've never been talking about how easy this world is, because it's not. This world is a challenge, and people that have been through suffering, it's easy to start blaming other people for it, like I used to do, and that won't bring you any joy. It'll just trap you in a thing called hell. And I just, Christ let me out. And so now I'm always on this video trying to get all of you else that are out there, all of you others that are out there trapped in hell, out. This is a free will choice. You can choose Christ, but you have to do the things he asked. You're going to have to forgive to be forgiven, right? That's what he said. So please go get to know those parables and see that he said that if you do not forgive, he will cast you into prison to pay all that's due. I've never been a liar about that. You can go read what Jesus said, and you'll see that it's right there in all his parables. His parables, he said, I'm going to speak in parables so they don't understand. They will be forever hearing and not hear. They will be forever seeing and not perceiving, lest they turn and I should heal them. And then in other Bibles it says, lest they turn and they should be forgiven. So if you don't get to know those parables and understand truly what Christ was saying, then you can't get healed, because your thought of Satan will try to get you to judge other people, and in the judgment you give, you will receive. And Christ told us not to do that, that we're to forgive each other, period. Forgive everyone, right? And that's the purpose. So just know I love you because my Father loves you, and may God bless you and yours.